Hi everyone, welcome back. A thought just popped into my head, and intuitively I felt strongly pulled to just drop a quick video. So I am trusting my intuition and rolling with it. But it just occurred to me that it might seem odd to some of you, like many that follow this account are people that I think are probably curious what I'm up to post military and post Valkyrie project life. And I think that's probably understandable because I, find myself curious about others in similar ways. Like when I knew people or was friends with people from previous iterations of life and see things online that have changed drastically, I'm like, oh, I'm curious about that. I want to see what they're up to now. And so I get the sense that some folks that knew me before are probably, intrigued by a lot of the woo-woo spiritual things that I post on Instagram and on my YouTube channel, my new YouTube channel, under the name The Practical Alchemist. And the reason for that name is because I think alchemy is such a beautiful concept. It really has origin, I think, as the precursor to what we know as modern science. But the practice of alchemy was more tied to understanding all the things unseen in the world and in existence and in the universe. And so I love the idea of alchemy in that, not in the literal sense of, can I transmute this lead into gold, but in a more metaphorical sense, what can I take from life experience? What pain and hurt and difficulty can be repurposed and repackaged and seen from a new perspective in order to serve me better for the rest of my life? And so the accounts have been my effort to bring what I hope are healing messages to the world. And whether they're coming from me or from, my higher self or unseen powers that are more wise and powerful than me, I'm not really sure. But maybe a little bit of both if you're invested in the idea that we each have a piece of the divine that belongs to us while we're here on this earth playing out our story. So I've been seeing a lot of news about what's been happening in the Middle East and the conflict with Israel and Iran and the United States and others. And I think it's probably jarring to many of, especially my veteran friends and service member friends, that I have a lot to say on intangible things that don't directly relate on the surface to what's happening in the world. But I do think that the ideas and concepts I'm presenting actually do have a lot to do with the conflicts and struggles that we're facing right now. And here's how. From my perspective, it's important to apply this alchemy towards the things that most frustrate us, that most scare us, that most bother us about our existence on this earth, because I don't think that it's coincidental that we came here when we came here. I believe each of us chose, and I hope I don't upset people with this, but sorry in advance if I do. I think we chose to come to this earth in the way that we came, at the time that we came, with the parents that we chose, because there were specific things that we had to learn. And I believe a lot of us also probably wanted to sign up to be here, not only to bear witness to the world changing for the better and evolving, but also to participate in that change and contribute to helping the world move into this new illuminated evolution of human existence. A lot of people online are saying now that the second coming of Christ is not about a literal reincarnation of Christ, but rather that it's a metaphorical concept of human beings as a humanity as a whole now embodying Christ-like energy on Earth, which includes, you know, all the things that we think of when we think of Christ-like energy, being generous and loving and forgiving and supporting our communities and living life with humility and with the understanding and knowing that we each hold a piece of divinity and that we can share it with others for others' benefit. So getting back to the whole, you know, Army veteran currently being probably blaringly silent, you know, it's one of those like deafening silences, right? You know, sometimes people communicate a lot more with what they're not saying than what they're saying. And my general view on the conflicts around the world right now are, I think we're evolving away from a time where we can solve problems with violence anymore. And really, if you look at a lot of the history, there were a lot of problems we attempted to solve with violence that continue to this day. And that's not in every case. I think there were definitely conflicts in human history that had to happen the way that they had to happen to bring us to this point. But I think there's also an important time to recognize, well, the things that we used to do won't carry us forward into the future that we want. And I think you can apply that statement to lots of things happening right now as they relate to geopolitics and the environment and the way that human history is playing out at the moment. Things that don't work anymore, even, you know, disillusionment and frankly lies in certain big industries, including, you know, in healthcare and the way that we get our products and our food. There are a lot of things that have reached their epitome of usefulness that we're now going to have to probably deliberately deconstruct and rebuild to have the future that we want. And so I'd like to circle back to something I've spoken about before related to holding two polarities at once, or holding two truths at once. And my friend Majana, who you should check out at majanadon.com, her podcast is amazing and she's an amazing translator, talks about as yes and. Pose a question. Is a thing this or this? Is it good or bad? Is it right or wrong? Yes and, or maybe in some cases no, but. And so how do we hold the polarity of these things? How do I hold the polarity of what's going on in the world? Yes, I am a veteran. Yes, I am glad that I served. I'm glad that I did the things that I did. I don't regret my experiences, and I don't regret choosing the choices I made, because they have inevitably developed me to be in the place I am here and now, which is easily the most safe, peaceful, stable situation I've ever found myself in. And I'm 40 years old, so it took a minute. So no, I don't have regrets about putting on the uniform, and I don't have regrets, even though I made plenty of mistakes. I don't have regrets about the life course that got me where I am. And, I don't think that the rest of human experience or humanity on this earth is going to be defined by conflicts that impose violence in order to exert the will of certain powers. I think we're moving away from that. And I think that there are countries that have given examples of, you know, how this can be successful. Costa Rica, as an example, doesn't have a national army. They just had a police force in the wake of what I believe their civil war. But there will also be things in the future of an illuminated humanity that I think we haven't seen yet. And those unseen possibilities, you know, even if they've never manifested concretely, live in the imaginations of creative people that are willing to put some energy towards, yes, I believe it is possible that we can get to a point where we can resolve differences without blowing each other up anymore. I believe it is possible that we can create a sustainable future where everyone has access to food and security and education and healthcare and all the other things. And before you unfollow, which, you know what, if I'm like triggering you all over the place, of course, it's up to you. You have individual free will, but I would say this has nothing to do with politics from my vantage point. I see politics as a human construct to try and create a framework for, necessary discourse that happened throughout time, with origins in ancient societies that saw a need for people to, get on a platform in order to discuss their differences in communal areas that made decisions for groups of people. But I think we're moving towards a point where the platforms and the values of certain strong political parties have become so muddied and conflicting that I don't want to sign up for any political party, because no one can represent the true depth and variety of who I think I am. And I think a lot of people out there feel the same way. And so I hope that was a helpful little discourse on, my potentially odd distancing myself from concepts of things like, national defense and the war, and having opinions on those things. But this is also an invitation to you, if you would like one, to disentangle yourself from identities that no longer fit, and to spend time investing energy, mental and emotional energy from a place of love into the world that you would like to see, hunting for the evidence of the world that you want to see, and investing in that by being thankful for it. When neighbors are sharing resources and time with each other, that's something to be grateful for. When people are doing good despite all of the chaos that's happening in the world, that's something to be grateful for. And I don't think that investing our energy is to be taken lightly, because you have control over one thing, even if you have control over not any other thing, and that is your own response to what's happening around you, and the energy that you create and distribute with your day-to-day, whether you're going to work or interacting with your kids or your spouse. Everything that you have control over, even if it's just you and your decisions, is more than enough to usher in this new world that we all want to see, especially if we're all participating in it and invested in seeing that play out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry if I pissed you off. And I will see you next time.